The alarm goes off at 6:40 like it does every morning, and you let it ring twice before you kill it, because the man in 3B can hear through the wall, and a guy who turns his alarm off on the first buzz is a guy who has somewhere important to be. You don't have somewhere important to be. You have everywhere. That's the part nobody would believe. The ceiling above your bed has a water stain shaped like Ohio. You've looked at it for 3 years. You could have it fixed in an afternoon. You own the building. You own the management company that manages the building. You own the holding company that owns the management company. But a fixed ceiling and a 60-year-old walk-up is a flag, and you have spent a decade learning to never be a flag. Here is the number since you've been waiting for it. 1 billion. Liquid and not so liquid, spread across 11 jurisdictions, and not a single human being who knows your face knows it exists. Your mother thinks you do something with software. Your last girlfriend thought you were cheap. The IRS thinks you make $91,000 a year as an independent IT consultant, and the IRS is correct, because that is exactly what the W-2-shaped entity you pay yourself from reports, down to the FICA. You are the most law-abiding ghost in America. You put your feet on the cold floor. The radiator clanks. You think the thought you think every single morning, the one that has nothing to do with money. I wonder if today is the day I slip. The coffee maker is a $12 drip machine from a Target on Route 9. You bought it with a debit card like a person. You stand in the kitchen in a t-shirt that's going soft at the collar, and you watch the pot fill, and you feel, for exactly 4 seconds, completely normal. Then your phone lights up on the counter. Not the phone your mother calls, the other one, the one with no contacts and no name, and the screen says one word, confirmed. You don't react. You've trained yourself not to react to that word, but your pulse does something anyway, the way it does when a notification says, your statement is ready, and for half a second you forget you already know what's in it. Let me show you how a person disappears while standing in plain sight. It starts smaller than you'd think. The Honda Civic in the lot is a 2019, silver, 41,000 miles, a coffee cup ring permanently fused to the center console. Edmunds would tell you it's worth maybe 14 grand. You love this car with an intensity that worries you, because the Civic is not a car. The Civic is a sentence in a language only you speak, and the sentence is, nothing to see here. A man in a Civic does not get a second look from a valet, a neighbor, a tax auditor, or a woman at a party who's deciding whether you're worth her time. The Bugatti, yes, there's a Bugatti, sits 4 states away in a climate-controlled unit registered to a Wyoming LLC, whose registered agent is a law firm whose client list is sealed. You've driven it twice, both times alone. Both times you came home and got back in the Civic and felt the relief of a man taking off shoes that fit too well. This is the first layer, and it has a name: asset isolation. Every valuable thing you own is legally severed from every other valuable thing, and all of them are severed from you. The Bugatti can't be connected to the building. The building can't be connected to the offshore fund. The fund can't be connected to your name, because your name isn't on it. A nominee director's is, a man in a country you visited once, who has signed documents he's paid not to read. You back the Civic out at 7:15. The guy in 3B is scraping ice off his windshield with a credit card, and you give him the little nod, the "we're both just trying to make it" nod, and he nods back, and neither of you knows the other at all. You drive to the coffee shop. You go every morning. You like the barista, a kid named Devin who's 19 and saving for community college, and tells you about it unprompted, the way young people tell things to the regulars who seem safe. Devin makes your drink before you order it. Devin does not know that the check that pays him comes, eventually, 4 corporate layers down, from you. You own this coffee shop. Not the franchise, there is no franchise. The whole thing, through an LLC called Maple Crossing Holdings, which is owned by a trust, which is administered by a family office in a city you will never name to anyone, ever. A family office. Here's the part the fantasy never tells you. When you cross from rich into a certain kind of rich, you stop having a financial advisor, and you start having a government. A family office is a private company whose only client is you, and whose only job is to run the machine that is your life. The lawyers, the tax structure, the property managers, the security people, the person whose entire job is making sure that no single document anywhere on earth contains both your legal name and the true scale of what you have. Functionally, it's a CIA that loves you. It costs a fortune to run. Call it well over $1 million a year just in salaries and fees. and it is the cheapest insurance you will ever buy, because the thing it insures is your ability to keep standing in this coffee shop, ordering a $4 latte from a kid who likes you as a person and not as a number. Devin slides the cup across. "You look tired, man," he says. "I'm always tired," you say, and that's the truest thing you've said out loud in a week. You don't know yet that Devin is going to matter. There was a man named Ingvar Kamprad. He founded IKEA. For decades, he was named among the richest human beings alive, and he drove a 15-year-old Volvo, flew economy, ate the meatballs in the store cafeteria, and reportedly furnished his house with, what else? IKEA. He once said he got a haircut in a developing country because it was cheaper there. And the genius of it, the thing that gets lost when people tell it as a quirky frugality story, is that IKEA's ownership was structured through a Dutch foundation and a tangle of entities so deliberate that for years almost no one could say who actually owned the company, including, arguably, the tax authorities of several nations. The old Volvo wasn't the eccentricity, the old Volvo was the cover. The structure was the real machine, and the structure was breathtaking. You learned from men like that. You learned that the visible frugality and the invisible architecture are the same strategy wearing two faces. You sit in the Civic in the parking lot and you drink the latte and you do the thing you do. You open the banking app, the real one, behind 2 layers of authentication and a number you've memorized and never written down, and you look at it. Not because the number changed, you know it didn't. You look at it the way some people pull the same cabinet open to check the food is still there. It's a tick. It's the tell of a man who came from nothing and still, on some animal level, does not believe the nothing is gone. You came from nothing. That's the part the fantasy skips entirely. 11 years ago, you were 26 and your lease was up and you had $400 and a side project that 2 strangers wanted to buy. You sold it. Then you took the money and did the thing almost nobody does. You didn't spend it. You didn't announce it. You vanished it. Poured it into the first LLC like water into the first chamber of a lock, and you decided in a single afternoon that you'll never fully be able to explain that you would build your entire life around one rule: no one finds out. You were not wise, you were scared. The 2 feel identical from the inside, and only one of them makes you rich. Your phone buzzes, the mother phone. You let it ring while you decide who you're going to be for the next 4 minutes. "Hi, Ma." She always opens with this. Your net worth could fund a mid-sized university endowment, and your mother's primary concern is whether you have eaten. "I ate." You sound tired. Are they working you too hard at the computer thing? "The computer thing is fine, Ma." And here it comes, the part you brace for every single time, the specific silence after she says, "You know, Sandra's son just made partner, 6 figures. His mother won't stop." She doesn't say the rest. She doesn't have to. The rest is, when do you get to be the son somebody can't stop talking about? And you sit there in a $14,000 car worth 1/100,000th of what you could buy her city block, and you take it. You take it because the alternative, "Ma, I could buy Sandra's son's entire firm and not feel it," is a sentence that once said can never be unsaid and would detonate the only thing you've ever successfully protected. "I'm proud of you anyway," she says, softer, because she's a good mother and she hurt herself. "You're a good boy. You work hard." "Thanks, Ma." You hang up and you sit there and you do not cry, because you've gotten very good at not doing that. You just hold the phone for a while. The latte goes cold in the cup holder, next to the old ring. Now, let's go down a layer, because you have a meeting, and the meeting is where the real shape of your life becomes visible. You drive 40 minutes to an office park that looks like every office park, Suite 214. The name on the door is a consulting firm that does technically exist and does technically consult. Inside, 3 people wait for you, and these 3 are the only people on earth who know. Your attorney, Reza, who structures the entities. Your CPA, a terrifyingly calm woman named Pat, who has explained the tax code to you the way a priest explains scripture, with reverence and a little fear. And the man who runs your family office, whom you'll just call the director, because even in your own head you've trained yourself not to use his name. Here's what they're here to tell you. The fund had a position that went sideways, a real one, 8 figures of paper loss and a basket of holdings. And Pat, calm as a lake, says the word that turns a wound into a tool. Harvest. You sell the losers, you lock in the loss on paper, and that loss becomes a key that unlocks the gains you'd otherwise be taxed on elsewhere. Tax loss harvesting. The rich don't fear losses the way you were raised to. A loss, structured correctly and timed against a gain, is worth real money. Every dollar of capital loss can offset a dollar of capital gain, and the leftover can shave a little off ordinary income year after year, carried forward forever. You watch 8 figures evaporate on a screen, and you feel something close to gratitude, and you understand, in your gut, how far you've traveled from the kid with $400 who once cried over a $34 overdraft fee. The poor pay tax on what they earn. The rich pay tax on what they decide to realize. Screenshot that one. It's the whole game. Then the director slides a folder across the table, and this is the part that re-breaks something in you every time. Inside is a single sheet, a map of you, boxes and lines, the trust at the top, the foundation under it, the LLCs branching down like roots, the properties, the fund, the jet. Yes, there's a jet, a fractional share of one, registered to an entity registered to a trust, so that when it lands, the tail number traces to nothing, to a wall, to a name that is not a name. You look at this chart maybe twice a year, and every time the same thought arrives, cold and total. There is more of me on this paper than there is in any room I walk into. The real you, the textured, tired, latte-drinking, mother-calling you, fits in a Civic. The structural you spans 11 countries and cannot be photographed. You have spent 11 years building a self so well hidden that you are now, functionally, 2 people, and only one of them gets to talk to Devin, and only the other one is real to the law. Reza says something then. He's been your attorney for 9 years. He's the closest thing you have to a friend, which is to say he is a man you pay, who knows you, which is the only kind of closeness your life permits. He takes off his glasses and he says, "Can I ask you something, off the clock?" And you say, "Sure." And he says, "When's the last time someone said your name and meant you? Not the entity, not the client, you." You don't have an answer. You sit with the boxes and the lines in front of you, and you genuinely, searchingly cannot remember. That's the thing the chart doesn't have a box for. Let me tell you about Marcus. You haven't thought about Marcus in a while, on purpose. Marcus was your roommate the year everything started. Same crossroads, same $400, same age, same scared. Marcus took his little windfall and did the thing the books tell you to do. He bought the index fund, VTI, set it and forgot it, kept his W-2 job at a logistics company, married a woman named Priya, had 2 kids, put them in a school district he chose carefully, bought a normal house with a normal 30-year fixed at a rate he still brags about. Marcus is worth today maybe $1.5 million. On paper, you destroyed him. You are worth roughly 650 times what Marcus is worth. Marcus's daughter calls him daddy and means him. Marcus's wife knows exactly how much money they have, down to the dollar, and they argue about the thermostat, and the arguing is a kind of intimacy you traded away in an afternoon you can't fully explain. When Marcus dies, his kids will inherit his house with a stepped-up basis and never pay a cent of capital gains on the appreciation, and they'll know it came from him, and they'll know who he was. When you die, the structure survives you. The boxes don't grieve. You don't know who got the better deal. That's not me being coy. You genuinely do not know, and the not knowing is the tax you pay that Pat can't harvest. You drive home. It's getting dark earlier now. You stop at the coffee shop again because you forgot. You actually forgot, the most expensive man in the room, forgetting a $4 errand, that Devin said he'd have an answer for you today about the community college thing. He'd gotten in. He was short on tuition. He'd said it the way kids say things they don't expect you to do anything about. The shop's almost closing. Devin's wiping down the counter. He sees you and his whole face changes and he says, "I got the financial aid letter. I'm short like $4,000 for the year, but I'm gonna figure it out, I always do." And he says it with the specific brightness of a person talking himself out of disappointment in real time. And you recognize that brightness, you lived that brightness, and you have, in an account he will never see, enough money to send every kid in this zip code to college for the rest of the century. And you can't hand him $4,000. Because a barista's frugal regular does not produce $4,000 from his coat like a magician, and the question that follows, "Where'd you get that, man?" is the first thread that pulled, unravels 11 years. You've run the math on this exact scene 100 times in 100 forms, and the math is always the same. The cost of being kind, out loud, traceably, is the entire structure. Your generosity is the one luxury the architecture cannot permit. You can move $1 billion across the planet in an afternoon, and you cannot help the kid in front of you in a way he'd know was you. You'll figure it out, you say. You're a smart kid. You watch his face do the thing, the little dimming, the "yeah, I figured you'd say that." You leave a $40 tip in the jar on your way out, which is the most you can do without becoming a flag, and $40 against 4,000 is not kindness, It's an apology to yourself, and you both know it, except only one of you knows what it's an apology for. You sit in the Civic in the dark, the latte ring on the console, your reflection in the windshield cut in half by a streetlight. There is a thing you do later that night that you will not tell anyone, that you can't tell anyone, which is the only category of action left to you. The next morning, the family office, through a community foundation, through a scholarship fund with a generic name, through 3 layers of nominee nothing, will quietly endow a need-based grant at one specific community college, criteria written so narrowly that exactly one applicant this year could possibly qualify. Devin will get a letter in the spring from an organization he's never heard of. He will never know. That's the only shape your love is allowed to take now. Anonymous, deniable, structured, and received by someone who will thank a stranger that doesn't exist. You start the car. The radiator at home is clanking right now in an empty apartment, in a building you own, in a city full of people who'd recognize the building before they'd ever recognize you. 8 years from now, there's a boy, a man by then, standing at the front of a logistics warehouse he'll end up managing, and a junior hire will ask him how he paid for school, and he'll say a scholarship he never figured out, some fund, some name he forgot, the weirdest thing, like it was made for me, and he'll laugh and shake his head, and never once, not for a single second of his whole good life, will he think of the tired guy who used to order the latte and look like he had somewhere important to be.